REP4 is a bit of a complex construct. It is really the elevation of student voice. It's the elevation of a sense of inner control. Since the 1960s, students have been feeling that the external environment controls them more than their own internal environment. So this is a program that affects students on a very personal and individual level, and then affects institutions as they transform on a systemic level. We're a group of public institutions. We all believe very deeply that we operate in the public good. So the theory of change is that REP4 sits at the center and works with the student both to empower them in their own educational process, as well as to use what they produce to make changes in the institution. It's an asset-based model. Today, most of what we talk about when we see different levels of success for different groups of students is, what are the deficits? What do we need to do? How do we add to that educational process? Really, what we need to do is look at the assets. What are they bringing? What is their incredibly different lived experience? We represent over 200,000 learners as institutions, and we are wonderfully diverse. We have different missions, we have different mandates, we have different regions. And it is through that diversity that we're going to learn faster how innovation seeds, how it scales, how it can be supported. So what is it that we do? We bring students at the high school level in cohorts to our institution. We support them with types of active learning like design thinking that helps empower them in their own journey. And the work they do, the palette, if you will, they work on institutional change. And then we as a set of institutions agree to be places of experimentation for the best of those ideas. Every year since 2019, financial literacy has been on the minds of students. When we gave this to the students to produce, how would it resonate with a 16, 17, or 18-year-old? They produced in a virtual domain a set of tarot cards, which created personalities that they needed to be most aligned with. They needed to figure out what their money personality is. And they're continuing to build this out. Now I ask you, would I, at my age, think about that as the way to relate to students as they come in? The answer is no. I mean, they're going to create things that are much more relevant, that resonate, that evolve, that live on, that are in technological domains that they live in every moment of every day. So we are very early on in this journey, but if you believe in prototyping, which is a faster way to get to change, you have to believe that we have to evaluate our early successes and begin to move now. The student's own voice of how they feel ready after going through this program, or their own endorsement, which is almost double of when a student is asked, would you recommend this institution? Doesn't matter what institution, on a national average, would you recommend this institution for someone who's coming along behind you? If they've been through REP4, they recommend it at double the level. So they feel more ready, more equipped, more in control, and they've offered us incredible ideas for our own transformation.
When President Mantella contacted me about REP4, what really excited me is it entirely shifts the focus. And I want to come back to something she said in her opening remarks, which is that I think I've got a lot of good ideas, but if I'm designing for people who are 17 or 18, I may miss things that would be absolutely transformative for them.
Right. We need to change in higher education, as referenced before. Things are at a kind of precarious place in a variety of ways. And if we don't change, change will be foisted upon us. And I think that is something that we don't want to happen. So it'll help our value proposition. It will help our impact. It will help us argue for more resources as a state entity. And I think it really pushes us back to the roots of higher education, right? That place of discourse, that place of discovery, and ultimately that place of creativity, right? Knowledge creation.
When you have students that attend HBCU, an HBCU, where 70% of the students are on financial aid. We sit in the middle of Georgia in a rural town. So when we bring students on campus, the issues that impact them are the issues that they live with every day. So when we ask them for student voice, 3 things came up over the past 3 years since REP4 has been on our campus. That is food insecurity, mental health, and financial literacy. So each year we have attacked one of those issues.
It's a moonshot, if you will. Let's change the entire higher education system so everybody finds a place in it, so that we're serving all the needs, and so that we are once again a beloved institution, which is not where we are right now. And so we don't worry about all of that. We can't get involved in that. What we worry about is, how do we meet our mission? And our mission is met by bringing new ideas. And change always comes from innovation, from startups. If you think about the Silicon Valley, language, we are that kind of a startup, but we're a startup with big ideas. Every founder, by the way, thinks they're going to be the next unicorn and change the world. We believe that too.
What our REP4 summit this summer did is we had students ask the question, how do we get young people who are coming up from high school excited about and interested in things like the semiconductor industry? How do we change what they imagine as possible for their future? And one of our winning proposals from the students, one of these design changes that will be at the national convening this year, was an app that helped students find mentors in STEAM, so that they could, if they were interested, if they were excited, they could easily access someone who is in industry, who is in education, in those fields, so they could actually begin to imagine a future.
I think the work of REP4, by engaging students with their voices, for them participating in their own learning, that is giving them a sense of belonging. That is making them want to stay, to be connected.
Ultimately, I guess my ask would be of anyone in this room that has influence, when you support the work that comes from REP4, you're not supporting just now, you're not supporting an idea. I think you're really supporting that trajectory of change that is necessary for us to continue to evolve and serve our states, our communities, and the country at an even broader and more impactful way.
Education is a national security issue, period. If we have an underdeveloped, undereducated population, then we are not going to be prepared for the challenges that we face as a nation. And we are looking at a global environment that is in flux, and we have to be ready. And what REP4 is doing in multiple ways is thinking about not just how do we revise what we're doing here so you learn better, but how do we make sure you get here? How do we make sure you engage? And how do we see people through to the other side so that we're preparing our nation for the future?
This alliance of partners are asking themselves, their partners, staff, and students, both present and future, how can we make this place work for you, whomever you are and however you're entering this space? Ubuntu, I am because you are. REP4 is saying we succeed when you succeed, and that's a worthy disruption.
The question is, on your watch, on my watch, will Latino student success improve? And from everything that Deborah and I and our staff are learning about this innovation, and the fact that we already have made common cause with some of the institutions that are part of your consortium, suggests that after we get to know each other better, that what we can look at in a results-oriented way is, how do we deploy this synergy?
So what other institutions doing? Like what's my peer institutions are doing is always a go-to way to bring people together in the conversation. But this idea that we can bring different types of institutions, conventionally understood, into sort of a similar mission around where we want to go or what we want to be, and that sort of alliance of communities of institutions can work.
What our objective is a global movement. What our objective is scaling the tools and participation level. And what our objective is sustainability. And that's going to require a different level of support in the next phase, and then a sustainable level of support in an ongoing phase.
I think the work that we do in this vein will ultimately advance equity in that capacity. And I know that it feels dicey these days, right? Because you can't turn on the radio or the television without being kind of immediately thrown into the culture war. But if at the end of the day, we focus on how are we helping our people? How are we helping people to become better, more productive citizens and residents who are going to give back to their communities? I think that's really key.
Our students are different now because they've grown up with a computer in their hands, because they've gone through a global pandemic, because they're facing a kind of political and social disruption that we haven't faced in generations. And we need to learn from them, and that's why REP4 is so critical right now. Because if we're not asking them the questions, we're not going to change and get better at serving who they are right now, what they need right now. And so we have a responsibility to do that work, and we have a responsibility to keep asking them the right questions.
I think sometimes we overcomplicate concepts. This is pretty simple. It's learning how to listen. It's having empathy and understanding what this generation is going through. And it's realizing we don't have all the answers, so we need to collaborate on finding them. It's that simple. It's empowering student voice for their own support, their own development, their own wonderful, incredible journey, and to help us with our own institutional transformation.